How good is it to talk cricket with the coolest man in the sport? So good that one sitting wasn't enough for us. We had a lot of questions. Some were tough.
How do you kind of be at peace with yourself?
I've never really liked the term anchor.
Some made him awkward.
You strike me, in the little time that I've known you, very self-aware and quite a humble man. Would you agree? You would, wouldn't you? Anyway, I don't need you to answer. No, in all seriousness...
What are the numbers around it?
In all seriousness, yeah, the numbers say you are.
Of course, he came with ice in his veins, but he fired his shots too.
Trying to really develop your game, learn a new shot or whatever it might be.
Has there been have you had it?
Yeah, have you not seen?
Oh, yeah.
You've not been watching. I thought it was your job.
He even fact-checked us.
Yeah, like you're 35 today, but if you look back and talk to a 20-year-old Kane Williamson...
34.
34. Don't add any year.
You're going to be 35 in August, aren't you?
Over the next hour, you get a glimpse into Williamson's wisdom.
Everything's sort of fast now and it's that instant sort of gratification.
His wit.
What's your favourite stroke?
Big slog.
Yeah.
And a window to his future.
Have you thought of life after cricket at all?
I mean, a lot.
Right.
Really?
For part 3 of this conversation.
This is Talking Cricket with Kane Williamson.
This is what we love to do on ESPN Cricinfo. Just talk cricket. So hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Cricket. I've got a really special guest today. I mean, so many years that we've just admired his professional work ethic and, you know, you come to Cricinfo and you just want to read and learn about this guy. Nagaraj Golapudi, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First time, huh?
Yeah,
both of us together.
I think I gave that away a little bit. So Naga's here for a reason, because my real guest on the show, an absolute modern day great. The last time I did one of these, Nagaraj sent me a stinker saying, you didn't let me listen in. So this time I'm compensating. I'm making him sit here in the middle. And Naga and me together are going to do what many great teams have tried to do, attack Kane Williamson from both ends. I'll bowl my rubbish leg spin front of the hand and Nagaraj can bowl his dibbly-dobblies. But Kane Williamson, welcome to Talking Cricket. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, mate.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I think what I want to ask you first is, we're recording this while you're here in Mumbai doing IPL studio work for the first time, media work for the first time.
Yeah.
And you've been asked this question many times by a number of these other cricketers. So Kane, what's next for you? And we know you were playing the Champions Trophy less than a month back. Now you're here for the IPL. And your answer when people ask you, so what are you doing next is, let me just...
You mean next in the next month?
In the next 2 months,
oh,
what's
okay,
lined up?
Cool. No deeper than that. I head to the UK for a little bit and then have some cricket in Pakistan at the PSL and then basically the summer in the UK playing for Middlesex and the Spirit as well. So some T20s and championship cricket at the end of the summer.
So you've just come off major ICC ODI event. You'll be playing a T20 league in form of PSL.
Yep.
You're then playing the 100. You're then playing county cricket. So we've already up to 4 formats.
It sounds yeah. Well, yeah. I see where you're heading. Sounds like a lot, but
And this?
and this. Well, this is a different format, isn't it?
This is
Less
where,
physical.
This is where we try and tell us, like, we already feel like it's gobsmacking just listening to the challenges that you might have to face when you shift from one country and conditions and format to the other. What is the challenge?
Well, we can touch on formats in a sec, but certainly changing industries has been something quite different that I can't shed any sort of light on. But it's been new and enjoyable to be here and sit next to you guys. But yeah, the format thing, changing formats is, it's so important now and something that if you're wanting to obviously be in the international game and be involved for the most part, you're really wanting to be a part of all these formats. So there's for me, sort of growing up, came into the one-day side first. T20 cricket wasn't a big part of the schedule, and then Test cricket was a big focus. And so there was kind of the two, but you used to tour, and there'd be sort of 6 weeks or 2 months. You'd play your Tests, your one-days, and your T20s, and that was basically a standard tour. So having to shift between those formats and do it quite quickly was a challenge, but also enjoyable. There's a refreshing element to to playing a different format. But B, as a batsman or anybody, it's like, what are some of those quick adjustments you can make that that aren't physical, because you're not going to get the time in the nets to revamp your game. It's how do you adjust your mindset to be effective in your role in the three formats. So, for example, Test cricket, I always think, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but the challenge is quite internal. It's that self-management. It's how do you limit distraction and stick to your plan and have that commitment for as long as you can, despite you'll get dismissed, you'll have all these things that aren't desirable, but ultimately what gives you the best chance, and you try and really stick with this process, and then you'll go to the next format maybe 2 days later, and it's okay, the situation that's in front of me, and how do I best deal with that? What are my boundary options? And so it's really trying to get nice and clear on that as quickly as possible, and have that real trust in your game that when you are making those changes that you can commit and not second guess it. And then around that is probably the changing conditions, which, maybe somewhere further down in some of these questions, but the changing in the formats, I would say firstly would be mental, in terms of getting nice and clear on your approach, which is also a nicer way to do it, to be effective in the sense that it can be repeatable, rather than thinking you're going to have to change your game entirely from the Test format to the 2020 format to be effective. So actually just some subtle changes in mindset, having that awareness of the situation when it goes from red ball to white ball, I think are two important parts.
Yeah. Are you already thinking about different your next format when you're, say, off right now? When you say you have to limit distraction when it comes to Test cricket, are you living a little differently before you play a certain format? Because you said it's all mental, right? So until you're actually there in the middle, before that you've already started thinking about it, preparing for it. Is life a little different before each format?
Yeah, so preparation is interesting. Often the preparation will be for the priority, so that's one of the things. So you'll say you go on a tour, and they're not happening as much now because there's not as much time. So you might be in a franchise league, and then you might go from there to a Test series.
Yeah.
So you're always sort of looking ahead at some of the things that you want to be touching on that are important to your game. So in some ways it's bringing out your Test plan or your Test blueprint, the basics, your fundamentals that you can keep coming back to, that it keeps putting you in your best position, and when you're in that best position, whether it's your balance or being able to play the ball a little bit later. So then from there, with whatever conditions you go into, you can just add some little bits. And what are you going to be coming up against? Whether it's a high volume of spin or seam bowling or the bounce. What are the threats?
So you're doing all this just visualizing, closing your eyes, or you actually sort of dig out footage, data? Do you have a blueprint, or is it just everything in your mind?
Yeah, it's more internal. It's more in your mind, where you'll sit down and maybe just have a little brainstorm where you plan. Where you plan ahead, and everybody probably does it a little bit differently. But I guess after a number of years, you sort of have sort of that credit of, okay, I've been here before, so what are the things I want to touch on, the positions I want to polish before going into my next thing. And I sort of know, for me personally, that even in any format, those positions are important, but they just adjust a little bit to try and look for some more scoring zones as you get into the shorter formats, but not completely throwing away your Test game, because those foundations are key for any format, I think.
You said subtle changes in the mindset. The mindset is the key which helps you. For you, firstly, do you agree that for you, someone who's this vastly experienced, probably the adapting to different formats is easier compared to, let's say, for example, I'm just taking Rachin Ravindran. He's just starting his career in that sense and playing a 3 format. I'm just looking at a 3 format play. Do you agree that that experience helps you? And my other question would be, you're going to play PSL. You're sitting here in the studios. How are you practicing now in your mind for the next assignment?
Yeah, so you mentioned, I suppose the more you do it, the more lessons you have, the good, the bad, but ultimately opportunities to try and get an understanding of how you want to do it. And before you get exposed to it, you're probably playing domestic cricket, which generally is played in windows of either red ball, and then you might have your one-day competition followed by your T20 competition. So there's not a lot of that sort of quick crossover that really demands you to change your game and then go back to another format. So you kind of have these focuses at different times, whereas so someone like Rachin going and playing a lot more international cricket, obviously involved in a lot more franchise cricket, he'll be doing that now and sort of getting nice and clear on how he wants to do that. But it's never not a challenge. You know, it's always something I think that you have to be aware of and try and make the necessary adjustments, because it doesn't matter how experienced you are or how old you might be, that you still make errors, and sometimes it's for those reasons.
From what you say, I think you mentioned that ODI cricket almost came as the first format, if it's fair to say.
Yep.
And every cricketer, I'm guessing, like Nagaraj mentioned examples, will have now varying first formats. So you'll have guys like Rachin and Jaiswal who perhaps have grown up a little more on T20 cricket, whereas you and your colleagues in the Fab Four, if you like that term. Do you like that term?
I
Fab
don't refer to
sorry.
the four of us as that, but
You don't have a WhatsApp group with the four of you?
No.
It's a good idea though, don't you think?
Yeah, we spoke about that yesterday actually. I don't think it would be called that, but
There might be more people wanting to get, or would be admin, I'll ask you later. But anyway, these are you, Virat, Joe Root, Steve Smith. Test and ODIs have just been, something extraordinary for you all in your career. Whereas now you get a lot of guys who grow up on T20 cricket, and we tend to say that because they were such good longer format players, they found a way to succeed in 2020. Whereas right now, jury is still out, and a lot of these players who look like outstanding T20 cricketers seem to have pretty good game. But the challenge is when they tore away, it's not quite working. Do you sense having a first format is where it begins, and whether somebody will succeed in various other formats? And for you, because it was a format that was ODIs, it helped?
I feel personally grateful that I was brought up in that Red Bull era of that, and it's still there. But I mean, the T20 format is so prominent now, but where the volume that you play is so high, so the opportunity to bat long, but also the opportunity to really sort of go through those different problem-solving elements in the game, which you're playing a game for 5 days. It challenges you in every aspect. Your ability to focus, to be patient, your temperament, to adjust a plan, and you can get exposed in a big way, I think, in the Red Bull game. So you're always trying to problem solve, and the conditions change a lot more in Red Bull cricket. So there's these elements that you don't necessarily get, and certainly not the volume of in the white ball game. So the foundation of your game really starts to take shape by getting, I would say, getting exposed, getting found out, having to force learn, and so I think you're always a product of your environment to a certain extent. So some of the players perhaps these days they're coming up in the T20 realm, and it's which is amazing to watch, the skill sets that we see now in the power game. But it is different because it's short, and then it's over, and then it's the next, and it might be in 2 days, and it starts and it stops, and so players are learning in a different way, I think, with the dominance of the T20 game. So changing from that back to Test cricket, I see that potentially could be quite a big shift.
I think even Kohli said the same thing each time he's asked when he succeeds in T20. He says that you've used the word foundation quite a few times during this conversation already, that playing in first-class cricket, playing in Test cricket allows him to adapt to the white ball formats. If I get you right, you're saying the same thing. So is it easier for someone who's successful in Test cricket to adapt to the white ball format?
Than the other way around?
I'm a believer of that. I mean, I'm from that school, so I guess that's what I've experienced. And it's a different style of learning, but it's also a different world, I mean, everything's sort of fast now, and it's that instant sort of gratification or the social media. Or it was like when we started, it wasn't quite like that. You sort of invested your time and your passion in your craft, and you saw it in the Red Bull game, and it was over 5 days. And I know probably a lot of these things that I'm saying aren't that attractive to people that are new to the game, but for us, it's sort of that there's a romance to the Red Bull game, and you know, the learning as a person, I think, you know, through that, you know, where you apply yourself and you try and hold strong for 3 or 4 days and wrestle momentum, or you know, the ebbs and the flows, and these are some of the parts to the Red Bull game that I love.
I mean, you clearly talk like a test romantic, and we can see that you enjoy playing test cricket still, and I'm sure you're going to continue playing that as long as you can. But about the T20 game, I think virtually you've grown with the T20s. You started, I think you played your first T20 in 2009, I think, probably.
Maybe, yeah.
T20s
Something
grew
like,
with you.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I bowled a bit, and I was batting down the order, so we did all that, which a lot of players do, I think, when they...
How long
Classical
did
off-spinners action. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How long did it take for you to understand T20s and feel natural at batting? We're just sticking to batting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned my passion for Test cricket, but I love the game, you know, and so I remember when T20 cricket came on the scene, and certainly everybody was under the illusion that it was going to be for the big hitters, and that was about it, you know, and maybe the fast bowlers, and then all of a sudden the spinners were amazing, and then, you know, and it sort of finds its place. But so for me, I sort of was involved in a really limited capacity, and it was with my, like you mentioned, had a lovely traditional off-spin action, and so I'd play sometimes more as a bowling all-rounder.
Really?
Yeah, initially, yeah, which I didn't particularly enjoy. I wanted to bat, but I also wanted to work out methods to be effective and try and develop my game, because it wasn't something that we'd done a lot of, and so I really enjoy that and still do. And now you're seeing the tournaments that we see now of T20 cricket, where you do have those opportunities like the IPL, or whether it's another league around the world, or where you can actually change that focus to expanding your game. And so whether it's bringing in sort of some unorthodox shots, you know, to really add to your strength so you can keep moving the field. So I really enjoy, and I spoke about at the start, the refreshing element of changing formats. I mean, love the Test game, but also over the years I've really enjoyed playing the one-day game, and really enjoy the T20 game. So it's sort of having the balance of them all has been something I've enjoyed.
It's fair to say that what Test cricket wasn't for a lot of years is still fundamentally the same. Even if you talk about a Test tour in 2015, 2018, Test tour now, essentially speaking similar language. Talk about IPL or 2020 cricket, 2015, 2018 and now. Seems like different game. I mean, there might be some viewers that need to be reminded that you're an orange cap holder, that you nearly won the title for the second time with the Sunrisers when you led them in 2018, and yet 6-7 years down the line, we've had this or read this in the media so often, you know, when it comes to Kohli, Williamson, Smith, no, are they T20 players? Do they have the strike rate? Because the language is changing so much. Did you ever feel it as good a player as you are, and you played some match-winning innings even for New Zealand in T20 eyes? Somewhere does it also sort of come into you that, yeah, this strike rate chat, am I a good T20 player? Am I an imposter in this format?
I mean, one thing's for certain is that because it's new,
right,
and you are seeing this power game, you know, you are wanting to find your place, and that can vary, I think, from team to team, whether what role you have and how you utilise. Because I still see T20 cricket as a probably out of the three is probably the most team cricket that needs to be played.
Okay.
In terms of how you complement each other in the team, and how you put together strong performances and repeat that, and I find that really fascinating. You know, I think in the Red Bull game, there's that inner management, and it's sort of, you know, your contribution is to the greater cause, but your focus is really sort of here and now, but actually in the T20, it's how do you, with the team that you have, the role that you have, how does that complement each other? So, you know, I'm not going to be hitting the ball like Chris Gale, and certainly you accept that as a player, and certainly that was something I needed to accept. You're looking at some of these players and that wow factor, and it was incredible to watch, and you quickly realise that that's something that isn't in your game, and it never will be. So how do I start looking in the places that can add to my game and add to generating that strike rate that's required, and there are multiple different ways, and so just trying to explore that was really important for me, and adding to your game, sort of never to stop learning. And even now, like, you know, we're playing more and more of that format. I want to be involved. I still love the game, so I am looking to keep developing different shots, even at the ripe old age of.
Yeah. Really, my dichotomy with this is that you could have Tim David and Alex Hales or Chris Lynn have an off T20 season, but they're still T20 players. But if Kane Williamson or Steve Smith or Kohli have a off T20 season, you're saying, oh, are they T20 players? Don't you think that's a bit annoying?
Yeah, it is what it is. I look at T20 players or not, it's how do you be effective and win games for your team.
Yeah, sure.
And that's the focus, because there are times where an innings might not be on the highlight reel, but it's of real value to your team and how you need to get to where you need to get to. And I think sometimes it's really fascinating to watch is that not all teams have that, and sometimes conditions are totally suited to let's hit every ball for six and see where we land, and then there are other times where it has to look a little bit differently depending on conditions.
Allow me to grill you a little bit on the T20 batting aspect. Let's start with the strike rate. You have a career and the strike rate in the mid-120s. Currently, strike rate is such a talking point in T20, whether it be with an impact player or without an impact player in IPL, outside also. You've played as an anchor batter and you've been successful. Do you think there's a role for that kind of a batter still in T20 cricket? Forget IPL, just even outside IPL.
Probably a little bit more outside IPL. Yeah. I mean, the impact player is significant. It takes away, at times, some responsibility of players, because they know that they can go out. They've got so many weapons at their disposal, and so they'll keep going until they'll get the desired result. I've never really liked the term anchor. And that's the interesting thing about strike rate, is it ignores all context, because what's value? And if it's just a number on a sheet, which is strike rate, or even an average, or whatever it is you want to look at, unless there's context surrounding it, and are those decisions from those individuals moving this team forward, to me, as a captain, I'm much more interested in that.
Yep.
And these are the sort of people that I'm certainly fond of, and whether anybody else is, who knows. But I want a team that are willing, and so there are players that will have these strike rates, but are there moments where they've actually increased that? And I think you could say, well, there are times, and Virat is another one, who's done that absolutely, so it's timing, or in these moments are these decisions, and it might be an 80 or 40, or it might be and then, like you say, maybe everyone then goes,
21 World Cup final. T20 World Cup final, you exactly made 48 ball, 84, almost a match winning. Could that be one of the examples of where you kind of understood the situation, or rather you were in that place where you could up that strike rate? You hit kind of virtually at 170, 180.
Yeah.
Was that a good example of you playing that kind of a role you're talking about?
Probably for what it is that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is I'm trying to play the situation, so I'm not trying to answer the question that you're asking. My focus is, okay, what needs to be done, and how do we need to try and achieve it? And then obviously the end point is the numbers that start to spit out, and and then after that it's spoken about. But actually you're not thinking, I need to change something. It's like, right, where do we need to be? What do we need to do? And therefore then in preparation and in practice, what do I need to keep working on to keep getting better at that, but within the role that you have,
So keep getting better at that. You said the tweaks. Clearly you're also like wanting to evolve.
Yeah.
Some of the strokes, one of the strokes you've started playing in T20 a while ago was moving in and playing that ramp over the leg side, over the fine leg.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to say that When did it become easy? Was it easy or straight away, or was it?
I think when I stopped, I quit the idea of thinking that you could do it a totally different way, you know, like a Gale or a where you watch, that'd be nice to have, you know. And
I
it's
mean,
like,
of course you can't.
you know, right? But you stop searching in areas where you won't find answers and go, okay, like, what are some of the areas that are of strength to me, and then how do I try and develop them a bit more? Where are some six hitting zones, or and so that was kind of one of them. And being a slightly shorter player, being able to get low in the crease and maybe use the crease laterally. So you start sort of brainstorming a little bit and developing areas that, or slightly new shots, which is, it's actually really fun to do as well, you know, like, because you might have grown up in one or two formats predominantly, and then you go, great, like let's sort of, we won't forget those things because they'll be of value at some point, but how do we develop, if it's the reverse sweep, I mean, I like to go over cover, so how do I bring in these other options to keep changing the field and then ultimately giving yourself a better opportunity to have a bigger impact.
What about range hitting? Just
Go on.
Yeah.
what about range hitting? Like, is that part of your routine?
Not really, no.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, not really. I'll try and touch on, like, personally my power game, and I still want to continue to do that, but knowing that it's not going to be, once again, some of the other people that and I actually always find, like, I'll go to training or go to a tournament or change the format. My first net sessions, horrific, because you might go from test or one days, and then you go into a T20, everyone's excited and they're just trying to whack at every ball. And then you kind of go from one extreme, you go to the next, which is that, and then you kind of go, oh, actually, like, it needs to be a little bit more here, and I need to use my brain when I bat, you know, versus the idea of it all being physical. And so that's...
How do you, just listening to you is making me feel like, how do you kind of be at peace with yourself that this is me, this is what I'm doing, my role, I'm confident in this, whatever league I play, whether it's IPL or PSL or international cricket for New Zealand. How do you kind of stay calm and positive about what you're doing is right, despite everything that is happening around? Forget the names, like range hitting, first ball 6, first 10 ball strike rate. Strike rates are 150 plus.
Yeah.
People like even Kohli now opening up to that kind of an idea. How do you yourself keep that?
Yeah, and it's quite interesting, you know, we talk about some of these big adjustments in strike rates, say Virat from, I don't know, you'll know the numbers, but like in the last 2 years, what has it been?
150 plus.
150 plus.
So 150 plus, but before...
Before that, it was more in the...
And we look at that like that's drastic, but it might be 2 balls where he's accessed 2 new areas of the ground. So the adjustment, you know, from a number perspective is a lot higher, but it might be the fact that he potentially within his own game plan has gone, okay, I'm going to look to be a little bit more proactive a ball or two earlier.
He literally just brought back a slog sweep, like a shot that he had gone away from. He used to work off spin down the ground, and suddenly he started playing it, and for whatever reason he took it out of his game for about a few years. But that's the point.
Funny,
it's a small adjustment, isn't it?
It's actually it's a kind of a small adjustment versus a big adjustment. And so personally for me, knowing that it won't be mishits out of the ground, which obviously would be a luxury that we'd all want and we can't all have. But so, okay, what are some of the other areas? Right, how do you read the game and the situation and trust that you are looking to be of service to your team? And the hard part is that there are times and there are surfaces where actually it's getting through. So even in T20, you don't see it too much in the IPL, but there are times where conditions aren't actually. They might be 140 winning totals batting first,
and the T20 World Cup in the Caribbean,
100%.
Yeah.
And so if we're not willing to remove our ego a little bit to do what the team needs and be of service, which over there could have been a runner ball 30, you know, then. If we're just being if we're just victim to the number or the strike rate, then we can lose sight of what's really important, which is...
I want to actually go extend on that when you talk about ego batting, or at least just doing what the team needs. You strike me, in the little time that I've known you, very self-aware and quite a humble man. Would you agree, Kane? You would, wouldn't you? Anyway, I don't need you to answer. No, in all seriousness.
What are the numbers around it?
In all seriousness, yeah, the numbers say you are. But a lot of great players of your era were exhibiting skills of self-awareness. You know the younger players now that come up, grown up in a different generation, like you spoke of, so that affects how they think about not just the game, but perhaps the world. We tend to ask these questions a lot that A, will we see all format players? B, do we need to see all format players? Because a lot of players seem to be content by just being great T20 players. Maybe even the aspiration and ambition is not to play more formats. And given everything you've said, do you see a current crop of players, without singling anybody out, that don't necessarily show the same levels of self-awareness, that perhaps aren't open to many of the things that you've said? Is that something that the game might see more of, just if you have to visualize?
Possibly. But I mean, time will tell. I have no idea. But I mean, that 3 format discussion's an interesting one too, because there's, without a doubt, there's the talent. The talent that we see now is just incredible, and that's sort of that diet of T20 cricket and you know, those quick fixes, and also the game now is you know, if someone even shows you know, a moment of potential, or a moment of something, there's this noise, you know, that surrounds it. Whereas before my time even, but you'd hear of like a Mike Hussey's played 10 years of domestic cricket and just been incredible, and having to back it up and repeat and keep plugging into these small steps of getting even better when he's already at this. It's a different world. But this multi format thing is also, you know, the discussion goes into, okay, well, even within countries, what countries still have large focuses on red ball, and where are they turning their focus, and so you might see these multi-format players still, but they're probably more of a case in some countries rather than others, potentially.
Martin Crowe foreshadowed greatly in 2014 that yourself, Steve Smith, Joe Root and Virat Kohli would be generational players. I'm sure you've heard of this, or at least you've been reminded of it. To ask you today, if you can foreshadow for the next 10, 11 years, who could possibly be, you know, 4 generational players across formats? Do you even have 4 players?
Yeah, I do, because I had this conversation in the studio actually 2 days ago. The players that come to mind for me in terms of, and multi-formats, are Yashvi Jaiswal, Shubman Gill, Rachin Ravindra. I had...
it's only 2 days ago you said it, not me.
I know, and there was another name that was really obvious.
He's gone on
Harry
holiday.
Brook. Harry Brook. And also Cam Green was another one.
Oh, okay.
I know he's an
That's
all-rounder,
an interesting
but
name, good one.
I think those are 5 players that, well, you know, let's see, right? But they're all outstanding players, obviously, and showing fantastic sort of moments in all the formats, and that's great to see, and all young, and their games are just going like this.
Can I talk to you a little bit about T20 cricket and the positive impact it's had on Test cricket? Personally for you, what is the positive that you have imbibed from T20 and the skills, in terms of skill sets, and transferred it to your game in Test cricket?
I think, personally, I guess we'll just talk to the first bit, which is how T20 cricket's had an impact probably on the game in general, and sort of setting a new sort of realm of what's possible, you know, whether it's chasing 180 or 200 and whatever it is we see now, and the expansion of batters' skill sets and bowlers' skill sets, and also the fearless nature, you know, of certainly young players coming in now. The bold tag and some of these young players in the IPL it's pretty accurate. They come in and just appear to be fearless, you know, and they'll hit their first ball in IPL cricket for 6, you know, which is, it's not, it's kind of unheard of if you go back a few years. You know, and me personally, it's probably, it's had an impact, you know, and it would probably be more from the skill expansion,
Sure.
where you'll spend time, whether it's in a tournament or, you know, or a franchise, whether you're playing or you're not playing, but trying to really develop your game, learn a new shot or whatever it might be.
Has there been a new show? Have you had it?
Yeah, have you not seen?
Oh, yeah.
You've not been watching. I thought it was your job.
Please tell me.
No, I mean,
Please tell.
the reverse sweep
Yeah.
is one that...
So on
Oh,
that,
so that reverse sweep. Just one minute.
Oh, let's talk about it.
no,
Yeah.
no, I'm just, you can carry on with this. I'm just curious that, like, Joe Root also started playing a lot more of those shots.
Yeah.
You know, which did you, for yourself, establish a set of do's and do nots when it came to Test cricket, which T20 allowed you to just change? Like, if you got out playing funky, what we call funky, but just another scoring option in Test cricket, you'd be saying, no way I can do that, I'll look like an idiot. But suddenly you play T20 cricket, you go there and you think, this shot is on, even with the red ball. Did T20 help with that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, you build that confidence in exploring those skills, and then you start to play them, and then you start to bring them into the format, and then you start sort of going, well, why wouldn't I? And certainly with the change of conditions, having a few more options, you know, can be really helpful, and I do think that's come from
So the scoring areas are increased. I mean, like the way you and, I mean, some of you guys play the reverse sweep, the spinners are like looking at how do we attack you?
Yeah.
Whereas you're counter-attacking already, like especially the way Root sometimes has done, you've done in spin wickets. Is that like an advantage then?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just general growth, you know, and sort of looking to keep moving your game forward. And I mean, that's something I've personally always been passionate about, is how do you get better? Keep asking yourself those questions, and it's not all just physical. In fact, physical's, you know, it's a small part to it. It's that internal, that mental sort of side of the game where you can bring freedom to what you do, where you can go out and commit to a plan. You can deal with distraction. You know, these are some of the.
What's your favorite stroke?
What format?
Any
Big slog. Nah.
On left outside of.
Yeah. Just the run down to third man, as everybody tells me. My favourite shot, probably the back foot punch, maybe.
Your favorite stroke is that back foot punch, but a lot of us, especially in the outside and especially from the writing fraternity, we swoon over that dab. Third man.
It just
we
wasn't
just kind
as
of
cool.
find.
But yeah, Sorry, carry on.
No. I'm sure you've been asked about it so many times, and we just try to find different ways to describe it. Just playing it so late, dropping your wrist, and could you just talk a little bit of the mechanics of that shot?
Yeah, I mean, I actually remember watching some of South African batters play it, like A.B. de Villiers, Hashim Amla, and I mean, the thing I noticed playing them was that it was kind of the bowler's best ball, just a hard length, sort of fourth and fifth, and they were able to sort of get one off it, and then we either had to put a fielder there, which then opened up another area. So I was just sort of in the field watching that, and then we'd go and face their bowlers, and you know, Morne Morkel, Dale Steyn, Werner Philander, and the rest, and so I thought I'd like to try and develop that shot, and it actually was not through trying to hit the ball there, but more how you presented your blade. So it became a slightly, when you play it well, it was a high percentage option because you're playing a defensive shot to a hard length, and by using a straight blade, you can run the ball down through gully versus sort of actively trying to manoeuvre the ball, which can get a bit riskier. So, and certainly in white ball cricket, a shot that, you know, if you're able to hit the top of the ball, then it can sort of end up in this area and you can pick up one.
And are your wrists really loose on that shot because you played so late?
It's sort of more, you leave your hands a little bit behind, you know, rather than getting out in front. Obviously, if you get your hands out in front, you can't then pull them back to achieve that. So
Kohli does that, doesn't he? Kohli does that, doesn't he? The difference in...
yeah, I mean, everybody just does it
The
differently.
setup is so
You know,
different,
so what your areas are, how you're trying to get the ball, manoeuvre it, and so just by setting up in sort of the same way as I usually do, but instead of getting here for the defensive shot in white ball cricket, just sort of stopping here, just kind of let the ball run off. So, yeah, rather than,
So
you know, a lot of other
actually-
shots, you're actually...
It came as a result of watching another international team. So it came fairly late in your cricket career. It wasn't something that
Oh,
happened when
that
you
was
were a
pretty,
kid.
like...
No, I'm talking about even when you were a kid.
mean
It's
not-
not a shot you
no.
played as a kid.
No.
Ah, that's interesting.
No.
Okay.
I mean, the shots that you want to play as a kid are not that.
You don't
know,
defend.
It was only when you're going, gosh, where am I going to hit this, that I need to come up with another option. So that was...
You've got this look of, do you think I want to just tap the ball for one as a
Yeah.
kid as well? Like I've always been an old man.
Yeah, exactly.
What happens if you don't play that?
Like any shot, some days you play it better than others, and over a period of time, sometimes it kind of leaves your game for a little bit, and you're kind of accessing different areas, and so, I mean, if you don't play that and you play a different one,
So I know the reason was, do you feel like something like it's your go-to shot in a way, but if you don't play it, it doesn't matter to you. You still carry on.
yeah.
There are some players who will say that it's a relief shot also. Those kind of, they have their own place. So
Yeah,
I
it's
wanted to.
like I guess a relief shot would be probably where you're looking for a real boundary option. So sometimes you can get a boundary, but that's more of a how do you sort of be efficient at the crease, so you're able to keep ticking over and generate a little bit of momentum through you know, accessing different parts of the ground rather than getting stuck on a bowler's sort of good line length. But,
We touched upon yesterday on an important point of the impact of T20 on test batting. One of the probably the key areas, if you agree, would be, does your defensive game get affected?
yeah, I think it
And
can.
in what way? Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you sort of have a big diet of T20 cricket, naturally you're getting out in front. You're trying to power the ball essentially a lot more often, and you know, by doing that repeatedly, day after day for a period of time, then you know that can kind of creep into your game a little bit. So to go back from getting out in front, accessing the ball early, to then trying to bring your shape back to hitting the ball a little bit later, and perhaps playing with a straighter bat versus sort of a full swing, like those adjustments, you know, can take a bit of time, but certainly just need addressing when you do change the formats, because yeah, even injury, you know, is another one where I know for me when I had my elbow problems, how it affect the shape of what I was trying to do. So, and probably more so in Test cricket than the other formats where it's sort of getting a little bit more open because you're protecting somewhere of your body that's uncomfortable, and then you know, another part takes over, and you know, so you're trying to kind of work with it as you go and develop, and you play the different formats, you get a bit older. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was just looking up the amount Nagaraj is sort of keen to understand on that one shot. I was just trying to see, there's that one cricket book that was written on entirely on one ball. What was it called? I can't remember. Do you remember it? There's a whole book written on one ball. So I'm just thinking that Nagaraj is going to author a book someday when you and I are both old men, and Nagaraj is still
Young.
as old as he is now. Yeah, and that's going to be just on the depth. It's going to be like a full 300-page book on it.
But is there's also the footwork, right? That gets impacted, because that's what you're saying. In T20 cricket, you just stand and you swing. Whereas in...
And you get a bit open sometimes.
Yes.
Versus holding your position and
Correct.
waiting for the ball. And,
Yeah, and so the footwork is, do we now have to just accept that as part of it, that the defensive part of the game because of T20s, when people come to play Test cricket, is going to be a little bit more weaker compared to the time maybe 10 years ago?
Well, I mean, I just think players will do it differently. I mean, ultimately, it's about problem solving and working out what you need, the tools that you need, whether it's T20 or Test, and if you're changing between formats, do I need that defensive game that I can trust, you know? And for certainly it was a popular thing years gone by, and it's it's still relevant today. But players are much more comfortable. People sometimes say the best form of defence is attack, and you do see that a bit more now with some players more so than you used to, where they'll be more inclined to walk down the wicket and do something a little bit sort of, well, I guess we'd describe foreign, but maybe not anymore because you see it a lot. But they'll try and hit bowlers off their length, or they'll try and versus sort of sitting and trusting your defence that you'll play and miss the good ball, and then you'll be able to capitalise when they miss. So, it probably is changing a little bit. There's still an awareness that there's a threat, which could be the ball that's moving around, and how they deal with it is changed, but not for everybody.
On that, if I could just ask you a little bit about the same theme when it comes to playing spin. You saw the recent New Zealand series, the one that broke India's proud record, you missed it. And the thing that we're starting to observe is even Indian batters don't trust their defense against spin anymore. And therefore, we're seeing batters who are willing to take down spin, not maybe necessarily because they enjoy attacking them, but because they just don't know how to defend, or if don't know how to defend is too extreme. Do you think that's relevant right now? That's something you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I think it depends on how challenging the conditions are, because if they're really, really challenging, then sitting there and defending and waiting to be dismissed is less preferable than, okay, if we get 200 or 180 on this wicket, that gives us an opportunity. How we get there, it may not be through defence. On a wicket that you can trust a little bit more, you can bring a game plan that you can sort of commit to, that if you do for a long period of time, you trust as a batter that gives you the best opportunity of success. But sometimes if conditions are extreme, and we actually had a pitch in Bangladesh that was extreme, and the game was over in 170 overs, and there was no benefit to looking to defend, because A, you'd go nowhere, B, you'd wait for a ball that did something outrageous, So it actually became about, Glenn Phillips actually played, great opportunity to bring it up, because no one's going to talk about it. He got 80 in the last innings, we're chasing 130, and there were no promises in that chase, and it was one of the all-time great knocks, where he didn't defend off the front foot. So anything fully slog swept, anything short, he was efficient, but it was, so I think the T20 game has opened people's eyes to, okay, there might be other ways to do it. Sure. And even in that Indian series where New Zealand, we were successful, there wasn't, players weren't looking to defend a lot. They were looking to sweep, they were looking to reverse sweep, they were looking to be proactive. They were trying to put the bowler under a little bit of pressure, because if the bowler's allowed to, and the Indian spinners are so good, they're able to just hit an area for long periods, and you aren't able to go anywhere.
There'll be one ball with your name on it.
And the natural thing is that you...
It's a good way to look at it. But there used to be, because we are purists, or rather we enjoy Test cricket as a battle, a contest, the bloody-mindedness, that's gone now. I think we can't, there might be one odd innings, all of you will play one, but I don't know which one is that for you. Like we saw the latest one I remember was Pujara against Hazelwood and Cummins and etc. A few years ago. That was like pure, just taking the ball, hitting.
Character.
It was not, it was character, because that situation demanded, and it was a aggressive, in his own way he thinks it's an aggressive way to, he described it as aggressive. Though we thought it's more like defensive, but it's not. He's thinking. So I think we won't be seeing that.
The strength in committing to a plan, right?
Yes.
Versus just looking to, which is, I love to see that too, that's that in a game where you're, and Pujara's one of the best at it, with his game, and look, defensively sound, but willing to stay within that space for days, days and days, and that's, I think it's such a skill and an art, and maybe we're not breeding that sort of mindset.
A dying art
anymore.
Fading?
Probably.
What is the word? Fading or dying?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. No.
Do you see a lot of young kids who want to be that kind of player?
I don't think so. No. I mean, well, we're just seeing so much of T20 cricket. So what are we watching? We're watching T20 cricket. We're not seeing that in this format, are we? So it's naturally you're a product of your environment and
cherish them while we can, I guess.
If you're into that.
Somber note. Yeah.
Final few, and this is an important area, mental breaks. Moving from one place to another used to be once upon a time a problem. Now it's moving from one format to another and just not getting to switch off, traveling with families like you are, even if you're on broadcast duties, you're traveling with families, so you need to switch off, find time, quality time for them. There was this nice quote, Ben Stokes came up in 22. He said, when he retired from ODI cricket, he said, we are not cars where you can fill us up with petrol and let us go. It has an effect on you, the playing, the travel, it does add up. I guess you relate to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think it adds up even more as your life changes a bit and you get a bit older and, you know, you might have children or you might have whatever it is, you know, that you sort of, or you might have just done it for a long period of time. And so, you know, it does add up, and sort of having a bit of a balance to what you do, I think, is really important. Having said that, Stokes, he retired for about 5 minutes, didn't he? And then he was back. but you know, the demands, you know, you're a human being, aren't you, at the end of the day? And, you know, it is important.
You got a text.
You prioritise.
Yeah. Would you prioritize Test cricket over everything if given a choice? If you were put in that spot or pushed to that?
I mean, over the years, that's absolutely been the case. And I still think Test cricket is the pinnacle of the game. And I mean, the game is challenged now. I mean, we've spoken about it in here, how we fit everything in, how we marry up international cricket, franchise cricket. It's all a part of the picture. And for me now, I'm feeling incredibly fortunate to have played all the formats for quite a long period of time. It's not so much mental breaks, but it's more the balance of what I'm doing and where I'm doing it. You know, I have a young family and still love representing New Zealand. Yeah. And so it's just trying to make that work. And I've been fortunate as well in this last year where I haven't been contracted, but worked closely with New Zealand Cricket, who've been really supportive in that space too.
They're actually a unique board in a way, because we tend to look at non-central contracts as lack of commitment at times to want to play for the national side. I guess the first real example of it was the Caribbean, which saw players not wanting to commit to West Indies cricket. But in some ways, has New Zealand shown us that there can be a good way to accept realities. Still, there shouldn't be any sort of stigma attached to not being centrally contracted. Do you sense that's worked for you guys?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit initially, like when some of the first players to do it, and rightly so, you know, it's new territory, and the thing in the international space is the team. You know, you're trying to build a team, sort of a lasting environment that's growing, and so managing people coming and going and what they're motivated by, and so there's a bit to work through there, and so.
I mean, you're such a central figure there that I'm trying to think whether you slept a bit uneasy just before you thought, like, I'm also going to go and have a word and tell them, you know, I'd like to not have a central contract. Like, it must have initially felt like something wrong that you're doing initially.
Yeah, a little bit. But I brought New Zealand Cricket in with the decision-making sort of straight away, so it wasn't sort of isolated in the decision. It was more, this is what I'm looking at, and open to the new world, which I think you're right. So they are looking to try and, as best they can, work with the new balance, which we're still working out, you know. But they're making every effort.
Yeah. Last two questions. One is, so the mental thing, it's also, I think, a responsibility of the player, you would agree, how much to play, how much not to play, and how to compartmentalize the game as well as find that life-work balance, isn't it? because that also allows, when you have quality players playing across formats, it kind of increases the quality of the product is good. So it's equally a player's responsibility as much as it could be the board's responsibility about scheduling. Fair?
Like,
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, is it just on the player, or I wonder how
The players
you
are having a say now.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how you sort of, whether it's on you to find enough ways to almost find the de-stress mechanism or whatever it is that you need to detox to keep yourself from burning out. Is that solely relying on you, or do you sometimes need some help from?
Oh, I think, I mean, the schedule generally is there, so there might be some pre-planning, certainly for all format players, and it's not just the idea of burnout. I mean, teams seem to be really aware of that now and kind of try to work with players so that we sort of don't get to that stage, but also that a lot of these players that have been doing it for a long period of time have other things in their lives, you know, and so it's not just avoiding burnout in cricket, it's actually making sure there is time to be a human being and connect with your family and understanding that balance, and I do think that in general I think there's more of an acceptance or openness to that, and I think when that's there, then there's sort of the less chance of burnout. I remember being a younger player and felt like I had a break every day. I was just playing every day. Loved it, you know, and now the picture's just a little bit different, and so keeping up those lines of communication and just, you know, understanding how you feel and what it is you need is really important.
Last question, and the last ball I bowl to you. Let's see. Is there room for new age cricket to take something from 20th century cricket?
I think the game, like, it always appears to change a lot and change drastically, but then it's a bit like fashion, like, this will come back in fashion soon, you know what I mean?
Yeah, too. I was watching Friends, and I was like, man, they're wearing something that I like to wear.
I don't know.
This is only an audio podcast.
No, I think, like, there's always sort of the knee-jerk reaction to something that's, you know, a 260 and the game's changed forever, and then we see that large percentage of matches and situations haven't actually changed a lot, you know, like there's a subtle growth sort of upward trajectory of probably what's happening and the boundaries that are pushed, but, you know, at the end of the day, decision making, you know, like, I mean, the skill set's going to continue to evolve, and it has to, but even the ability to make good decisions, and how do you put yourself in a space to do that for longer periods, or, you know, so all these sorts of things, the inner part of the game, there's going to be similarities, I think, forever. I mean, we right now look back in time, you know, and you see the game's changed, but there are definitely similarities to then and now, and I think that'll continue.
To use your word, foundation. The foundations will remain the same.
Just
much.
on that note, I will pick this off the one we did with Bondi and Dale. If you had to give your 20-year-old self some advice of what's to come.
What's to
like
come.
you're 35 today, but if you look back and talk to a 20-year-old Kane Williamson.
34.
34. Don't add a year.
You're going to be 35 in August, aren't you?
You're just smartly like saying.
I just turned 35 last month.
You see, we're the same age.
I was thrilled to see that he's a 1990 born. Okay?
Yeah.
So he's just a millennial, just about. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. The first thing you've taken offense to in your entire life. Right. If you have to tell
Sally and I had the same battle, actually. Anyway, yeah.
If you have to tell the 25-year-old Kane Williamson something now, what would you say about what's to come and how to prepare for it?
I would say, I would still speak to the foundations. You know, you got to love it, because if you don't love it, you stop it, generally. So you got to love it, so you got to be put in an environment where you can express yourself, explore what you can do naturally, you know. And then, you know, if it's young Kane was interested in going further, you know, I think that the foundation of what you do is key, because you're going to have failures, successes, you're going to, all of the above. You got to maybe go around the world, you face different opponents, you get exposed. And, you know, what is the thing that you come back to that you feel good about, that you know your game is an extension of? So it'll be, you know, it'll be that, I think, some of those foundations.
Lovely. And now if I have to ask you, what do you see, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Come on, still hitting.
Where do I see myself?
10 years from now, when you're 44, not 45.
44, gosh.
Have you ever thought of life
yet.
after cricket? Have you thought of life after cricket at all?
I mean, a lot.
Right.
Really?
For part 3 of this conversation. No, like, when I say,
I mean,
not specifically in terms of what will I do exactly, but more from the perspective of like really sort of aware of it, that there comes a time and it ends, you know, and like how do you want to be when that day comes is more what I consider.
Well,
so whether it's chatting to you guys a couple of times or you know, doing other things, I'm not sure yet.
Sure, I can
We're
just
not
tell
taking you. We want you to.
I can just tell you this, that if you want a central contract 10 years from now, Cricinfo is there to give it to you.
Well,
So
I might come knocking. Cheers.
thank you so much, Kane
Thanks, Kane.
Williamson.
Thanks a lot for that. That was really good.
That was Kane Williamson on Talking Cricket here on ESPN Cricinfo.